Brian Cardinal was never a flashy player on the court, but boy could he hustle. Cardinal made a living off it, diving for loose balls, taking charges, and being a pest defensively, earning him the Custodian nickname for being on the floor all the time for loose balls, cleaning them up with his knee pads, while also having a three-point shot helping spread the floor as a stretch four, never lighting it up on the stat sheet, yet it was the little things that defined Cardinal's career, and an unorthodox one at that, not even getting recruited to the school his dad worked at, having to redshirt his freshman year of college before finding time to shine on the court at Purdue, showcasing his effort every time he hit the floor, becoming a fan favorite for his efforts, then barely making the NBA as a second-round pick, not too long after fell out of the league having to play overseas, before returning and thriving in Golden State as one of the best three-point shooters in the league, on top of providing his normal toughness, bouncing around some after before ending up on the Dallas Mavericks, who he'd aid in winning an NBA championship. This is a look back on Brian Cardinal's career. Brian Cardinal was born and raised in Tolono, Illinois, finding his love for the game of basketball as a kid from his dad, who was the head basketball trainer at the University of Illinois. Cardinal, under his father's mentorship, steadily developed on the court as a player, growing up and becoming one of the best high school players in the state of Illinois and a top 100 recruit in the country, playing for Unity High School. And by Cardinal's senior year, he was averaging 24.1 points and 12 rebounds, making Illinois' Coach's All-Star Game, where he went on to win MVP of the game. Cardinal had also made Coca-Cola's high school all-star game, where he'd finished the game with 24 points and 13 rebounds, being named most high player. When it came time to go to college, Brian Cardinal had wanted to go play for Illinois his whole entire time growing up as a kid after having family ties with his dad. Yet Illinois spurned him, not offering a scholarship to him, thinking Cardinal was not skilled enough to make up for his lack of athleticism on the court at the Division I level. Gene Cady and Purdue thought otherwise, though, seeing a potential good fit with the Boilermakers' tough style of play on the court, offering him a scholarship which Brian Cardinal gladly accepted. Once Cardinal hit campus, things did not go smoothly, though, as he was struggling in practice to hang with Purdue's current team, to the point he had asked to redshirt his freshman year, which Cady and Purdue agreed, as the team was deep, featuring multiple seniors and two up-and-coming sophomores in Brad Miller and Chad Austin. Cardinal spent his redshirt season going after it every day in practice, challenging himself against a talented Purdue team that would finish the season ranked 4th in the AP polls. After the season, Purdue graduated 6 seniors, creating room to step on the court for Cardinal his redshirt freshman year. Cardinal stepped into the starting power forward spot and thrived as the redshirt year paid off, becoming the third option offensively to Austin Miller, averaging 10.6 points, and was the second leading rebounder at 6.1 rebounds, while finishing 7th in the Big Ten in steals with 1.7 steals per game, quickly developing a reputation for playing extremely hard every night, to the point he earned the nickname the Custodian for hitting the ground for loose balls so much, cleaning the floors with his knee pads and elbow pads. On top of that, Brian Cardinal picked up the nickname Citizen Pain too, because of his aggressive style of play that often left him with cuts and bruises, all of which helped the Boilermakers stay competitive, going 18-12, making the NCAA tournament as the 8th seed. Round 1 brought a matchup with Rhode Island, who starred Cuttino Mobley and Tyson Wheeler. Purdue would find itself in a competitive game as they managed to slow down Mobley, and Brad Miller was playing well, with Cardinal aiding with 16 points and 10 rebounds. His biggest points being a 3 late to send the game to overtime, where the Boilermakers would pull away, advancing to round 2. Round 2, Purdue faced 1-seeded Kansas, who had 6 future NBA players starred by Paul Pierce and Raef LaFrentz. Purdue couldn't pull off the upset, being undermatched and shooting poorly, losing to Kansas. Brian Cardinal against Kansas had 9 points and 6 rebounds. Next season, Cardinal and Purdue had increased expectations as they returned the main core of the team, and Brian Cardinal would deliver again, averaging 12 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 1.8 steals, earning a place on the All-Big Ten third team, after helping Purdue be one of the top teams in the country, going 28-8, making the NCAA tournament as a 2 seed. Purdue would cruise through their first 2 games, defeating Delaware and Detroit Mercy comfortably in games that saw Cardinal have 16 points and 4 steals versus Delaware, and 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 steals versus Detroit Mercy, before Purdue met 3-seeded Stanford in the Sweet 16, who were a well-balanced team, who ended up ending Purdue's season behind Mark Madsen's play, in a game that Brian Cardinal had recorded 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 steals. After the season, Chad Austin and Brad Miller graduated, making Brian Cardinal the leader of the team now. Cardinal on the court kept on in a similar role, playing a well-rounded game, averaging 11.4 points, 5.5 rebounds, and led the team with 2.4 assists, and the entire Big Ten in steals with 2.3 steals per game. During the season, he became Purdue's all-time steals leader and tied the school's record for most steals in a game with 7 steals against South Carolina. And for the second straight year in a row, Brian Cardinal was named third-team All-Big Ten, guiding Purdue to a 21-13 record in another tournament appearance, this time as a 10 seed. Round 1, Purdue faced Chris Mim in Texas, whom they'd outlast to win by 4 points after Cardinal recorded 14.7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. Next round, Purdue matched up with 2-seeded Miami with Tim James, in a game that saw Purdue stifle Miami's offense, upsetting them with a good defensive effort led by Cardinal, as well as an offensive one, as Cardinal led Purdue in scoring with 20 points coupled with his 6 rebounds and 4 steals. Any Cinderella run, though, by Purdue would end in the Sweet 16, getting it handed to them by Temple, because Brian Cardinal couldn't get it going from the floor, having 5 points and 4 rebounds. Brian Cardinal entered his senior season and would become Purdue's leader in scoring, rebounding, and steals, posting averages of 13.9 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 2 steals per game, being named second-team All-Big Ten selection for his efforts as he had helped the Boilermakers improve to a 24-10 record, making the dance as a 6th seed. The first round, Purdue would barely outlast Dayton to advance by 1 point after Cardinal led the way in scoring, rebounds, and steals with 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 steals. The following round, Purdue were underdogs against 3-seeded Oklahoma, led by Eduardo Nahara, where, just like the year prior, Purdue would pull off the upset despite Cardinal struggling offensively from the floor, shooting 3 for 13 on the game, advancing to the next round thanks to the play of Jaron Cornell getting hot late. The Sweet 16 brought Richie Fram and 10-seeded Gonzaga, who they defeat after another good game from Cornell, and Cardinal aiding with 10 points and a team-high 8 rebounds and 5 assists, making it to the Elite Eight to play Wisconsin, who are a similar team not relying on one guy to win games, correlating in the game being a close contest before Wisconsin won by 4 points as Cornell couldn't get it going and Brian Cardinal couldn't pick up the slack, finishing with 13 points and 4 rebounds, ending Cardinal's college career, which saw him become a fan favorite at his time at Purdue, becoming the only player in program history to win the Mr. Hustle and Courage Award all 4 years he was there, as he had built a reputation for playing tough each and every play, throwing his body on the line, being the ultimate team player while becoming a solid shooter, causing some NBA interest, though not lots, as many feared his lack of athleticism would be apparent in the NBA and his ceiling only being a role player. So in the 2000 NBA draft, Brian Cardinal was selected in the second round with the 44th overall pick to the Detroit Pistons. Cardinal was joining a middle-of-the-line Pistons team led by Jerry Stackhouse and Ben Wallace. Cardinal, his rookie season, struggled to get on the court, playing in only 15 games to average 2.1 points and 1.5 rebounds, needing time to adjust to the NBA being played at a faster pace, riding the pine for the Pistons as the team went 32-50, missing the playoffs. Next season would be a different tale for the Pistons as they brought in Rick Carlisle to be the head coach, who brought a more defensive-minded approach on top of trading for Clifford Robinson, and lastly Corliss Williamson becoming one of the league's best six-mans, causing the Pistons to become a competitive playoff team, which for Brian Cardinal meant there would be less time on the court as the Pistons sought wins now, suiting up to play in 8 games to average 2.1 points, as the Pistons went 50-32, making the playoffs as a 2-seed, where in the playoffs Cardinal watched from the sidelines as they defeated the Raptors round 1 before the offense disappeared, losing to the Celtics round 2 and Paul Pierce. In the offseason, the Pistons looked to bolster their team, seeing Brian Cardinal involved in a big trade that had sent himself, Jerry Stackhouse, Ratko Varda to the Washington Wizards for Richard Hamilton, Hubert Davis, and Bobby Simmons. Brian Cardinal was now on a Wizards team that had recently saw Michael Jordan come out of retirement that was to be led by Jordan and Jerry Stackhouse. Though Cardinal's tenure on the team wouldn't be for very long, playing in only 5 games, averaging 0.8 points and 1 rebounds before being waived. After being released, Brian Cardinal would spend the rest of the season overseas playing with Pamisa Valencia in the Spanish League, where he'd fit in as a role player, aiding the team as they went on to win the ULEB Cup Championship. The next season, Brian Cardinal got a chance to return to the NBA to play for the Golden State Warriors, which he gladly accepted. Cardinal was joining a Warriors team that had been struggling to make the playoffs behind Jason Richardson. Brian Cardinal would make his mark this season, seeming to prove those wrong as no one picked him up after being released the prior year. Cardinal would earn his way into the backup power forward role to average 9.6 points, 4.2 rebounds, while shooting 44% from three, which was third best in the entire NBA, helping spread the floor for a team, on top of providing his normal hustle plays, which was much needed for a young Golden State team. Cardinal, for his efforts this season, got several most improved player votes and proved to the league he belonged in it. Meanwhile, the Warriors went 37-45, missing the playoffs. After the season, Brian Cardinal was a free agent and had earned himself a payday after impressing last year, signing on with the Memphis Grizzlies. Cardinal was joining a Grizzlies team that was starting to turn the corner after making the playoffs for the first time in franchise history the year prior, thanks to the core of Pau Gasol, Shane Battier, Mike Miller, and Jason Williams. Brian Cardinal would play a similar role to that of which he did in Golden State, off the bench, averaging 9 points, 3.9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.5 steals, though in only 58 games, as his style of play was starting to wear on his body. However, he had helped the Grizzlies make it back to the playoffs as the 8th seed after going 45-37. Round 1 brought the Phoenix Suns 7 seconds or less offense, starred by Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, who would quickly dismantle the Grizzlies in a sweep behind big games from Stoudemire. Brian Cardinal got his first taste of the playoffs, averaging 6.5 points and 3 rebounds over the series, with his personal best game of the series being Game 2, as he had 13 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals. In the offseason, to shake things up, the Grizzlies traded away Jason Williams for an aging Eddie Jones to help a playoff push. Next season, Cardinal hoped to continue in the same role, yet injuries diminished his playing time. Less minutes meant the averages dipping to 3.4 points and 1.5 rebounds in 36 games. Despite Cardinal's injuries, the team as a whole improved behind a maturing Gasol, going 49-33, making the playoffs as a 5 seed. The result would be all the same to the prior year, as the Grizzlies got swept again, this time by Dirk Nowitzki and the Dallas Mavericks. Cardinal had only played in 3 of the 4 games to average 1 point and 1.3 rebounds. Entering next season, the Grizzlies kept tweaking the roster, trading away Shane Battier for the 8th overall pick in the draft and Rudy Gay. This ended up hurting the Grizzlies short term, as they would struggle to start the season and Gasol missed several games. Normally this would mean more playing time for a guy like Brian Cardinal, but he kept on having little injuries here and there, and the team wanted to play younger guys. Seeing Cardinal have a similar year to the one prior, averaging 4.5 points and 2.1 rebounds in 28 games, for a Memphis team that went 22-60, missing the playoffs. After the poor year, the Grizzlies drafted well with a high pick in the draft, selecting Mike Conley. Though the Grizzlies started off the next season poor, seeing the team's star player on the move and Pau Gasol to the Lakers, causing a full-on tank again, which saw Brian Cardinal suit up for 37 games to average 3.4 points and 2.6 rebounds, as the Grizzlies went 22-60, missing the playoffs. In the offseason on draft day, Brian Cardinal found himself on the move as the Grizzlies wanted to trade up to select O.J. Mayo, trading Brian Cardinal with Jason Collins, Mike Miller, and Kevin Love to the Minnesota Timberwolves for O.J. Mayo, Greg Buckner, Marko Jaric, and Antoine Walker, a move they'd later regret as they had given up Kevin Love for O.J. Mayo. Cardinal was now on a Minnesota team that was rebuilding behind Al Jefferson and Kevin Love, being brought in as a part of the trade to provide veteran presence and work ethic, henceforth not playing a ton of minutes day in and day out, but he had one of his healthiest seasons in a while, suiting up for 64 games to average 3 points, 2.2 rebounds, and 1.2 assists, for a Timberwolves team that wasn't playing well on the court, going 24-58, missing the playoffs. Next season, Brian Cardinal's role was reduced as the Timberwolves played more of a youth, and they were not winning so many games, seeing Cardinal play in 29 games to average 1.7 points and 1 rebound. The Timberwolves would even trade Cardinal mid-year to the New York Knicks for Darko Milicic and cash. Brian Cardinal would be waived by the New York Knicks and signed back on with the Timberwolves to finish the year, as the team still valued his locker room impact. All the while, the Minnesota Timberwolves regressed on the court, going 15-67, missing the playoffs. In the offseason, Brian Cardinal was a free agent and wanted to do some winning, being on a playoff caliber team, so he signed with the Dallas Mavericks. Cardinal was joining a deep Mavericks team led by Dirk Nowitzki. Brian Cardinal's role would be to come in off the bench here and there when the team asked him to knock down threes and provide energy. Cardinal did just that in 56 games, averaging 2.6 points and 1.1 rebounds, while exclusively shooting from behind the arc, as 42 of his 43 made field goals on the season were threes, aiding the Mavericks in going 57-25, making the playoffs as a 3 seed. Round 1 brought a series with LaMarcus Aldridge and the Portland Trail Blazers, who the Mavericks would split the first 4 games with before winning the next 2 as Dirk got it rolling, in a series where Cardinal only played in garbage time. The following round brought the defending NBA champions in the Los Angeles Lakers with Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol. Game 1 would be a nail-biter where the Mavericks would get multiple defensive stops late to win as Kobe missed at the buzzer. After this, the Mavericks rode their defense going forward with new confidence, proceeding to sweep the Lakers to the surprise of most. Brian Cardinal would only play in Game 4's blowout as the Mavericks were hot from 3, with his personal highlight being hitting the team's 20th 3, tying an NBA playoff record. In the Western Conference Finals, the Mavericks met the young up-and-coming Thunder, who starred Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. Dirk would set the tone for the series, going for 48 Game 1, which the Mavericks rode the rest of the series, winning in 5 games. The series was closer than it looked on paper, as the Mavs had come from behind multiple times, capitalizing on the Thunder's youth and inexperience in big moments. Brian Cardinal would not see any action this series, but he was now headed to the finals with the Mavericks to face the Miami Heat, who entered as big-time favorites behind the trio of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Game 1, the Heat looked as the favorites, going up 1-0. This continued into Game 2, where the Mavericks found themselves down in a hole again, before in the fourth quarter they would rally, and it would be capped off by a drive from Dirk Nowitzki to win the game. The following game ended up being another closely contested one late, though the result would be different this time as Dirk missed the clutch basket, seeing the Mavericks go down 2-1, with many pundits thinking the Miami Heat have survived the Dallas Mavericks' best shot right then and there, though Dallas ignored them, putting up a fight the next game despite Dirk playing through illness, holding on to win late in the clutch after Dirk's basket in a chaotic final possession from Miami, tying things up. Game 5 saw it be a close one again, but in a familiar tale, Miami and LeBron disappeared in the fourth, and Jason Terry came up big, defeating the Heat, needing one more win to win it all. The following game in Game 6 saw Jason Terry get hot along with the rest of his team, pulling away in the second half to win the NBA championship. Brian Cardinal had played his part in this series in helping them win the championship, playing spot minutes in 5 games, hitting timely threes, and frustrating Miami's players by taking charges and being physical. Cardinal had earned his NBA ring. In the offseason, Brian Cardinal would return as a free agent to the Dallas Mavericks' title defense, though the core looked different as they no longer had Tyson Chandler. The season for Brian Cardinal saw age catching up to him and his minutes reduced, still playing a fair amount in the lockout-shortened season, going for 44 games, averaging 1 point. For a Mavericks team that was struggling to find last year's success with its new pieces and lack of Chandler to anchor the defense, going 36-30, making the playoffs as a 7 seed, getting another playoff matchup with the Oklahoma City Thunder round 1. Where the Thunder seemed a different team, coming up in big clutch moments, having grown from their prior series with the Mavericks, sweeping them out of the playoffs. Cardinal had only played in 2 of the games to average 1.5 points and 1.5 rebounds. Afterwards, Brian Cardinal decided to call it a career after 12 seasons in the NBA. Over those 12 years, Cardinal posted averages of 4.6 points, 2.3 rebounds, while shooting 37.2% from 3. Though the stats do not jump off the page, it was the little things that made Brian Cardinal special that don't show up, like diving for loose balls or taking charges, just being a glue guy in general for whatever team he was on throughout his career, proudly wearing his nickname the Custodian for his extra efforts, all of which culminated in him defying the odds again and again, starting with college after not being able to go to the school his dad coached for, then to be redshirted his freshman year, before starring at Purdue, throwing his body everywhere nightly, barely making it into the NBA as a second rounder, struggling for playing time early, having to go overseas before coming back to the States, tearing the Nets up from 3 with the Warriors, helping carve out a career going forward in the league, which ended with the Mavericks, who he aided in winning an NBA championship. Brian Cardinal had left it on the court over his improbable career. Thanks for watching this video on Brian Cardinal's career. If you want to see any other videos about any other random players in the future, leave them in the comments below, and I may or may not decide to do them. Who knows? Thanks again for watching. This has been Skid Denver.